So the dev Q&A for Mecha BREAK happened a few days ago, and whoa, there were a lot of changes. Like, oh my god. I have them bullet pointed here, and there are so many. The devs at Seasun Games have done an astounding job, is all I can really say. And I wanted to kind of go through what changes have actually been made and what they announced and kind of revealed at the AMA, as they called it, the Ask Me Anything. Starting with, I call them general changes because they're just sort of general things to do with the game rather than any specific mode. The first kind of port of call is when you first start a game, you now get this brand new UI, which you can kind of see behind me. That allows you to choose whether you want to start as a new recruit or a veteran. A veteran just jumps straight into the game and you completely skip the introduction, which people who have played the open beta, for example, will have already been through, because it kind of skips all of the tutorial stuff as well and just lets you get straight into the game, whereas new recruit goes through the intro and the tutorial and helps you ease into it. And the fact that you can choose it is awesome. On top of that, they showed off that all of the strikers are available straight from the start, right from the get-go. You don't have to unlock anything. Once you've gone through the training, or once you've clicked on veteran mode and just got into the game, they're all there. You can pick the striker you want and you can just use it. You don't have to grind for them anymore. On top of that, the achievement points that were previously used to unlock mechs and paints and all that kind of stuff now only actually unlock the extra kind of features and designs for your profile card display. So rather than them being tied to actual gameplay elements, it's purely a cosmetic thing for your character ID, for lack of a better term, which is really cool. They've even expanded the profile character cards as well. So they've got a whole bunch of new stats and things that are in there that you can unlock through the achievement points. And apparently there's more to come with squad mode. So I'm guessing there is a squad card that you're going to get as well, potentially, but that wasn't explained in detail. But it sounds cool. We also have now a pilot system where at the start of the game you basically create your character. But as you go through the game, you will unlock additional pilots, and they can all pilot every mech. So you can freely switch between which one you want to use at any one time, and that's really cool. They also, as we'll touch on a bit later, have their own stories, so that's even cooler. Next we have the photo mode that they showed off, and this really excites me. In Final Fantasy XIV, I spent way too much time G-posing, basically the photo mode in 14, but this one it's as crazy as the character customization, because as you can see behind me, you can freely click the different limbs and parts of your character's body to pose how you want them to. And that is just nuts. You actively move each skeletal element of your character to make your own poses. And I don't know how to explain how excited I am for that, because it is the craziest thing I've seen in a photo mode for a very long time. They've also announced, similar to photo mode, that there's going to be a motion system added to the game, which will allow you to actually do recordings and make your own footage and effectively build your own stories. So, I mean, we'll touch on it more later, but when you have other people in your hangar, for example, you could potentially make your own content and stories, and almost maybe even a sitcom if you wanted to, which is mind-boggling if I'm honest. And then the last thing for general changes, as you can see here, they've added a whole bunch of new maps, which is very exciting, because there were I mean the maps we had were very fun, but they were quite limited in the open beta, so it's really nice to see new maps added and just general new locations. It kind of feels like maybe Mashmak is also bigger as well, and that leads us nicely onto the next section, which is where we're going to talk about the changes to Mashmak, because there are a lot of changes to Mashmak. The first one that needs to be mentioned is that mech mods, they're now only in Mashmak. I mentioned this in my previous video where I kind of quickly touched on a few things, but basically to make sure that Operation Verge is as fair as possible, they've moved all of the mods to be MashMac exclusive. On top of that, they've also removed the progression systems from MashMac, such as, for example, the research to level up weapon mods and all that kind of stuff. So that immediately balanced out, or at least it should balance out, the weapon systems. And one of the biggest problems that we had in the open beta, where if you maxed out your auto beam cannons, you could basically kill everyone in an instant, and so people who played more just did that and won every game of MashMac. Additionally, anything that you bring into MashMac, so for example any weapons and drops that you bring in, if you die, they get dropped for the people around you. If you kill someone else, everything they brought can drop as loot for you. And so immediately it gets to the point where, okay, if you were having to do like the research stuff as we were before, it would actually be a nightmare doing all of that research and then dropping the weapon. So instead now, if you get a weapon, you get a weapon and that's it. It's already balanced, it's already upgraded, as it were. There is no research element anymore, which I am kind of happy with, because I think it's going to make it less toxic, honestly, because people aren't just going to put all of their eggs into one basket on whatever seems to be the meta weapon, upgrade that to max, and then just completely smother the entire game. Another thing that they've done for balancing issues is MashMac now has 3 difficulty modes, which it did not have in the open beta. The first of these is normal, then you have hard, and then you have... First they said extreme, but then later the translator was saying challenge mode, so I'm not entirely sure if it is extreme or challenge, but it's going to be called either of them, basically. And rather than you having to reach a certain score to unlock them, you can go into any of them at any one time. However, you have what's called a battle readiness score, which is kind of the total sum of how strong you are with all of the mods and everything that you've got equipped. And if your score gets to a certain level, you then can't actually enter, say, normal mode, because you're too strong. So that means that when you're just starting out, you're only really going to be going up against people who are also just starting out, because you're probably going to go into normal mode. Unless you're a masochist and just decide, okay, I've just started out, I'm going into extreme, but then that's on you. But that matchmaking was something that people really wanted from MashMac after the open beta, because if you did start late, or if you couldn't play it to death, then you would be at a massive disadvantage to those who could. So this immediately resolves that issue, because people who get really strong can't go into normal mode. And if they get too strong, they then can't go into hard mode, and they only go into extreme. So I really like that system, because you feel progression through the difficulty levels that you're going on, but the game stays balanced at the same time. And I think that's really cool. One interesting point to note is that normal mode has 5 extraction points, like we were used to in the open beta. Hard has 3, and extreme only has 2. So the difficulty definitely ramps up as you go up, and that's very cool to see. And I know a lot of people are probably going to be really hyped to effectively go into extreme. And I mean, can you imagine how it must feel if you go into extreme with multiple different parties all being for the resources, and then you get to be one of the 2 that actually get an extraction point? That must feel so good. Interestingly, they touched on the fact that the old credits currency that was in the open beta and was used for various different things like the research and all that kind of stuff. Obviously now that that's not a thing, what we use it for has changed. And now it's only for basically purchasing things like airdrops and stuff in MashMac. That is all it's for. Or for helping you assemble gliders for MashMac. And speaking of gliders, they are now a one-time use deal. So once you've assembled one, You go into Mech, you start your combat with other players, and the glider has its own health bar. And if that glider gets destroyed, it's gone. Once it's gone, you actually have to assemble a whole new one to replace it, because it is a one-time use thing. And that's really interesting. And again, it gives a sense of progression, because if it's gone, it gives you, if you lose it, it gives you something to work towards again, because you're going to want that glider back. It's little things like that, little touches of, whilst they've removed progression from the research and things, they've added other ways of progression and other goals that can appear as you're playing, which makes me very excited, I'm not going to lie. And then the last thing from Mech that kind of blew my mind a bit was how you can customize and like paint the weapons now as well. I don't think that was a thing in the open beta. If it was, I missed it, but I don't think it was. And I mean, the game already has an insane amount of customization anyway, as I kind of touched on in my previous Mecha BREAK video. But to now be able to actually do the weapons as well, you can just customize everything in this. There really are sliders for sliders in this game, and it's getting nuts, and I cannot believe how much they put in, and I'm so excited to see what everyone comes up with, because with this amount of customization across basically everything, we're going to have some really unique looking both characters and mechs and weapons and everything, and I'm really excited for that. So then that leads us on to the hangar. In the open beta, the hangar was an interesting one, because it felt a bit empty. Like, it was really cool that you can run around in it, but it felt a little empty. And so they put a lot of effort into working on it, and from what they've told us, there's still a few things that are going to come later. But for now, they've added in the ability to control the boarding bridge. So you can actually move it around, position it, raise it, lower it, and basically just get yourself the perfect angle for a picture of your pilot and your mech, which is very cool and gives you a nice little way of taking some cool posed screenshots, especially if you consider what I mentioned earlier about how you can actually pose your character in photo mode. They've also added a whole bunch of new rooms, such as, well, there's a med bay, I think there were some crystal research facilities and things that you can go and explore, which apparently are all going to have interactable stuff in there. Possibly the coolest thing that I'm most excited for, though, was announced for the future. That could be that they're working on it now and it'll be at launch, but I doubt it. I think it's more likely it's going to be in a future patch or update. But they mentioned that not only are you going to be able to have your friends come and visit your hangar, you're also going to be able to remodel and customize your hangar, which is effectively a form of player housing. And that is just stupid. Again, I want to caveat the fact that Mecha BREAK is a free-to-play game that is coming out at the start of next month. It is free to play, and they've already confirmed that we are having a form of player housing effectively. I don't know what level of detail the remodeling is going to have, but the fact that it's going to be there in a free-to-play game is just insane. Like, there's no other way I can say it. And I cannot wait for it. I can't wait to see what other people put together, and I can't wait to be able to put together my own little, realistically probably a very goth mech hangar, and it's going to be so cool. Interestingly enough, though, what is in launch is, so in the open beta there was an area where it kind of just showed off a bunch of weapons and a couple of items, and it wasn't really sure, like, I wasn't sure what it was. It wasn't particularly clear what it was there for. Turns out that this storage facility now actually shows the items that are in your inventory, such as the weapons you've collected, mods that you've found, the gliders that you have, It will specifically choose the strongest glider to display, but effectively you get a giant room to display all of the weapons and items and cool glidery stuff that you manage to get for your mechs. It is an armory display room that updates based on what you actually have, and that's so cool. Interestingly enough though, because obviously that is, as you can see behind me, is quite a large area. They didn't really go into detail, but they very, very briefly mentioned in a single line that they're planning to add jetpacks in the future so that you can fly around and see everything. I cannot wait to do that. The hangar now actually has 4 floors in it because they've added so many new areas. They've even added a pool hall by the look of it. And apparently the terminal in your room can actually now be used to replay story missions. And I mentioned it earlier in this video, but as you unlock more pilots, apparently you can play their backstory missions through the terminal as well, adding more story content, which so many people were asking for. And then the final thing for the hangar is that the TVs, like that you see, the screens around the hangar, apparently they're going to be having live updated content showing on them. We're not entirely sure what that live updating content is, apart from one specific thing that they mentioned in the AMA, and that's that the player ranking leaderboards will show in some of them. And so if you get on the scoreboard, on the leaderboard, your name will be on that leaderboard in other people's hangars. And that's a cool little way of making yourself feel good, I guess. If you're doing well, you get a little bit of a pick-me-up by the fact that you're being displayed in other people's hangars because of how well you played. And that's very, very fun. I really like that. And then the final thing to talk about is that they released footage of 2 new mechs which will be in the game. It's the first time we've seen new mechs at all since the open beta, and even before that it was all just mechs that we already knew. So the first one, as you can see behind me, is a twin blade, effectively samurai style mech. It's incredibly fast-paced melee combat, which looks a lot of fun. I would be very bad at it, but I know a few people in my community who would probably want to play it. It's called Stellaris, and I think it looks really fun. I just know I'd be really bad at it. And then the other one is a support and resource type. From what I can tell, it looks to be like a drone kind of mech, but I couldn't tell too much from the gameplay that you're seeing behind me. It's called Serenif. It looks very cool, and it's nice to see that there's a new support-based mech coming as well. And yeah, that's quite a lot of changes, don't you think? And it's not even everything apparently, because on June the 23rd, Chris, the kind of the lead developer, I believe anyway, is going to have another live stream where they're going to talk about the new areas, showcase them, run us through them, and they're also going to show more details about both Stellaris and Seraphim. So make sure you watch that, or at the very least get ready for my kind of summary like I've done today. So again, that was June 23rd when that happens, so I'm really excited for that. And oddly enough, when you think about it, if that's happening on June 23rd, there's only like a week from then till the game's here. And once it's here, I will be streaming Mecha BREAK every single Monday, as a bare minimum every single Monday, and I will be putting up more content, and yeah, I can't wait for it. Seasun Games, if you watch this, you've done a wonderful job with this game. Even during the open beta, it was easily one of my favourite games of all time, and with all of these changes that you guys have done and the fact that you actually listened to the feedback that was given to you, I just want to say great job, and here's to an absolutely killer launch. Thank you everyone for watching. Have a great day.